structure this very informally. So it's mostly a question and answer for you guys out there. So I've got, of course, Donna Henderson, our office manager up here, and then Geraldine Novak, who also wears many hats, but carries the title of communications coordinator for us. So anyway, we will get it kicked off. I'll let each one of them say hello and say a few words, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Hello, thank you for coming. Just a housekeeping note, we have a stand mic right here in the floor. We ask that if you do have a question, if you can use the mic. Dave Lofton is being generous to walk it to you if you don't want to stand up. So it just helps the camera capture the audio. So on that note, I'm Geraldine Novak, and I'm the communications coordinator. So basically anywhere from website, social media, photography, video, advertising, the Beefmaster pay weight, anything having to do with print or digital advertising that goes through me. And also sometimes when I have a slow period, I'll help with registrations and transfers. It hasn't been lately because of the convention, but hopefully with the next few weeks we'll be able to catch up and do all that. But thank you again for being here, and I'm going to introduce it to the lady of the hour.
Hi, I'm Donna Henderson. I'm the office manager. Pretty much everything else but Colin's not. So, he wears many hats. That's what I'm getting at, is that he wears many hats more than any other EVP has ever worn before. He takes on a lot more roles than they had done before, so it could be bad at times. I've been there 27 years, going on 28, so people know my name, so they ask me. We have a registration, membership customer service, registration transfers, Brandy Feller, who's out at the desk right now. Phenomenal. Learning everything she can. She doesn't just hand it off. She comes and listens. Well, how do I tell them this? How do I tell them that? Geraldine, Brandy, they're my backbone. I can't do things without them. So never think that this is a one-person office, because it is not. They are very much have input and are capable of doing whatever you need done, or finding out how to get it done for you. So we're glad that you're here today. Let us know what we can do for you.
And with that, we'll open it up for questions. Fire away.
Okay, now, first, just I'd like to say I appreciate you ladies in the office. You're doing a fine job, and I know my wife can call anytime and get a hold of you, and you can, and we just appreciate that. And I know Colin appreciates the good help there. My question, though, probably, Geraldine, whenever we get a bill of sale and you get that, if that's a new, do you check and see if that name is on the mailing list for the pay weight, and if it's not, do you put it on there? And if not, I think probably it should. You probably do that, but anyway, that's my question. Anyone that inquires, do they get on the mailing list for the pay weight?
Yes. So the way that we structure that in our office is each time a member is added into our registry system, whether it be new member or non-member. So these non-member buyers that would be coming in on bill of sale transfers or anything like that, they're automatically added into our system as non-member buyers, even though they're not technically members. So every non-member buyer and every member is added to our mailing list for the pay weight. And then if they do provide an email address, We require on transfers to have a mailing address, but we do not require an email for these non-member buyers. So, but if they do provide an email address, they are added to our email mailing list as well. So every time before we run the pay weight, I run that list. So every mailing, bulk distribution, we add to that list those names. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank
Okay.
you. I remember when first starting the paper, I sent you a bunch of names
Yes.
of buyers that I'd had, you know, and but anyway, that's not necessary, and you take that's taken care of.
No,
Okay.
I mean, I would love for you to do that because that ensures that those addresses are good, because that's the thing that we struggle with is bad addresses. We try to remove those bad addresses and we run it through NOCA, which is the National Change of Address Registry. So, but yes, the more information, more contacts you can give to me, we can add that. But yes, to answer, if you sell an animal to somebody that's not a member, we do capture that in our registry, in our mailing list. So,
And I would also encourage sale managers, private treaty, anything, if you have the opportunity to gather an email address, certainly pass that on. We can add that to any of those, be on members or non-members. As you've noticed, so much information flows through a digital service there. We can reach them instantly and pretty well free of charge. So certainly encourage everybody to submit an email address or ask for one. Some don't like to share it. We certainly understand that. That's why we still use the regular mail as well. But certainly ask for that. And if we have it, we can get that added also.
Is this on? I'm a big proponent of paperless. I don't like the certificates having because Lisa loses them all. But when we transfer, is it possible that, you know, to transfer something paperless, will they have that, or do you have to transfer a paper? When you transfer ownership and you're paperless, do they have to get a paper? Is there some way they can be paperless too?
The only way that you can transfer paperless, as you're saying, is if you have registered that animal online and held it for online transfer. That means we're not sending you that paper. When you get ready to do the transfer, we will walk you through how to go in and find that paper and show you how to go to the transfer screen. If it's a new buyer and you need a non-member number, because you will need a BBU number for that person, whether they're a member or not. They have to be in our system for that to work. We'll walk you through that. But if we have mailed you a paper, if you had it before we changed the registry system, or if you have a paper you can hold in your hand, we have to have that back as of right now. So things changing in the future, you know, things change fast and furious with BBU, and that is something, Mark, that a lot of people are aiming towards, is getting to a paperless online digital type ownership paperwork. How soon that'll come, I don't know. But right now, if you can hold that paper in your hand, if you've received it, even if you've lost it, we have to have something back in order to do that transfer.
Okay, well, I don't lose paperwork, she does.
Well,
But
Lisa.
my question,
But that's when we have the affidavit. So if you've lost a paper and it had been mailed to you, we would still need an affidavit to take the place of that original along with a Beefmaster bill of sale. So now you're having to do two papers.
okay, I think you answered my question and I didn't hear it, but maybe I have another question, I don't know. You explain it to me. Okay, I'm paperless. I have yearling heifers, and I know how to, believe it or not, know how to do the transfer. But when you transfer, right now, they get a paper. Is there any way where they don't get a paper, they're paperless just like I am? Is that in the future, or can that be done now, or?
You have one opportunity to hold that paper for online transfer. After that paper's transferred that time, that hold is off. That paper's going to print. There's no other option to hold that paper.
Too bad for them.
So
as it is right now.
So I'll speak to that just a bit. That's something that's one of the things that we're looking into. We certainly know that that will affect some bylaws, Mr. Carr. But we are exploring the opportunities, as we know in this digital age that we live in, of looking to see what the logistics are to get the system to handle that, as well as what it will take from a bylaw standpoint to possibly make that feasible. I will say, if we ever get to that, or not really if, when we get to that, it will certainly be incumbent upon you as the member then to kind of flip roles. Right now, you have to request or hold those animals for online transfer. When we flip the boat, it's kind of going to go the other way. It's going to be incumbent upon you to request that certificate. So if you still want a copy of that certificate for a junior or for some event that you're going to, sale management requires that hard copy of that paper. It would be incumbent upon you to make that request when we get there one of these days.
Okay, we've got a follow-up to the paperless, and then we've got a request over here.
Thank you, Dave. I've worked with Colin and Donna and all on that paperless thing, and I understand it and appreciate it. And I know yesterday y'all talked about that we're hoping to go paperless. From a sales management standpoint, it's a huge nightmare in having to transfer these papers. When we send out forms, we tell people we have to have the registration paper for one reason. A lot of folks don't realize, and I've dealt with people who say, it's on file, just send a C number in, just transfer it that way. We can't do that we're not allowed to. Even BBU, Donna, if you're paperless, you can call up there and say, Donna, would you please transfer that? She can't do it. The only person that can transfer it is that owner, the way I understand it. So as a sales manager, if we get a sale where we've got 30 people involved or 40 people, and we put in there that we have to have the original so that it can be transferred. Otherwise, I can tell you that if you deal with 30 people, 15 of them are not going to transfer that paper when it's done. And it builds up and builds up. So at least when you're dealing with these sales, and it says we require the original paper, go ahead and make that request through BBU then, so that we have it, and then it can be transferred. Otherwise, it's a big headache.
Anthony, I think that might be in the works, is what the guy beside me says. But two things is maybe help explain to the people. One is the difference between a P number and a C number, and I think it's going to lead into my next question, is the biggest issues you guys have in the office on registrations and DNA. And I think that's probably, I'm guessing that's probably going to be a big part of that answer, if I'm not mistaken. And then Colin, maybe after they get finished with what they're seeing in the office, are you still doing pro services, and would you tell them a little bit about what it is?
Okay, the difference in a P number and a C number, when you go in and register, or you register an animal on paper, and you want a certificate on it, you want a certificate issued on it, even if you're holding it, that's a C number. If you want performance only, not going to keep that one, doesn't look too good right now, but I want Mama to get credit so she doesn't watch you live barren for a year. We're going to go ahead and issue a P number, which is kind of what we used to call performance number. That's what the P numbers originally stood for. In this new system, if you have a calving interval problem, if you have the dam you put in is if there's a problem with it, if there's any error at all, it's going to issue a P number so you don't have to go and enter all of that information again. Once you see what that error is and you get it resolved, and you can edit a P number, you cannot edit a C number on everything. Once you get that issue resolved, you go back in and you can go to a spot where we will walk you through and register that animal at that point to get a C number. Okay? P numbers cannot be transferred. P numbers cannot be printed. C number is what you need. So if you had an error and you go, okay, I just registered some. Many people call me and go, I just registered 3 animals, I need to pay for it. Okay, what's your BBU number? I pull it up, there's 0 balance due. They're not whole herds. I said, no, you didn't register. So sometimes they didn't click all the buttons at the bottom, so I go through and I said, okay, look, do this and do this and do this, and then we'll get a C number. If there's an error, it will him and I'll say, well, it's saying you didn't own the sire at the time, you didn't have access, well, I borrowed it from Frenzel or whatever. Well, we need Frenzel to give you permission. So we walk them through that. On the DNA issues that you're talking about, Derek, there are some with the P numbers that we have to have. We have to have a record in the system to accept a sample on that animal. Otherwise, it's paperwork that's piling up over here that if you call back in, we're going to send that in, or it's a stack of papers, and we would have to go through it. So we want something in the system that we can say, okay, we mailed this out, this is the animal ID that, and when it comes back, we put those on there. Just like now, when you have to have on an embryo calf has to be genotyped before it can be registered, you're going to have to get P numbers on all of those, and when they come back, she's emailing you. She's not emailing me. I'm moving on to this breeder, this breeder, and this breeder. You're going to have to be proactive to either know how to go in there or call me and find out how to go in there and register that P number to get a P number on it now that all the criteria and all the errors have been resolved. It doesn't automatically turn over to become a C number once that's done. That's up to you because, like I said, we're moving on to the next person in line, and to remember to go back to this one now that they have genotype on their embryo calves. We can't do that, so that's going to be the breeder being proactive.
And I'll add on to that just a little bit. Basically, if you think about it from a sense, you have your records. If you don't ever write that calf's birth weight down or his birth date down, it's only you that remembers it or whoever was there. So that's the same way with us. That's why we require a P number on all DNA submissions at least. And so many are DNA typing all of their calf crop each year. It allows them to keep that P number there, keep it active, registered as the suspected sire or multiple sire. You have the ability to go back in and designate who that correct sire is once DNA verifies. But you can, as Donna said, you can make those edits online yourself as their P numbers. Once it becomes a C number, you can edit color and horn status, I think is it. That's the only thing outside of your performance. Then you have to come in and send us the information so that we can edit it there in the office. If we don't have those animals, as Donna said, entered in the system, we have no way of tracking them. So, you know, if you've sent that in and then you got DNA results back, but maybe you haven't gone through and decided which of those progeny you're going to register yet, that may be 5 months, that may be 6 months, it may be 2 years in some cases later. So we don't know which ones for sure that you want to move forward with the registration process and which ones you don't. So that's why we require that P number, mostly for tracking, so that we have that specific animal with a specific unique number that says P1234, and we're always going to have that animal in our database. So that's why we require a P number there so that we can keep up with this. Otherwise, we started to run into it where we have IDs, an ID is entered into the database that we use for DNA, which is just they call it a LIMS system through Neogen, and that's where we started running into issues because many of you use the same ID series in your annual calf crop, and so we don't know if it's talking about Derek's calf or Mark's calf or Dr. Colvin's calf or Mr. Carr's calf. If they're all using the same ID number, we really don't have a way to separate those. We find 497s in that calf crop for 2019, and we're not sure whose they are. So to speak a little bit to
Colin,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
Try to explain to my guys, because I'm like Anthony, we deal with a lot of guys and trying to figure out, registration, stuff like that. A P number, you can do absolutely everything with performance-wise. And what I try to explain to them, that is actually your stage one is your P number. But once you really want to make that animal active to register cattle and to transfer is when you have to get your C number on. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. So if you think of it in a natural progression of like when the calf is born and then we go through weaning and yearling and all that data, here comes birth. We get a birth group. We start to enter those, and let's just say your birth group is finished a week before we pull data for our next evaluation on a quarterly basis. You enter that, well, we can at least get those birth records in there. So any of the performance information does get used from that P number in our evaluations. So that's another aspect of it. But then as we move forward, like Derek said, C stands for certified certificate, however you want to say that. That's kind of what we're looking at there. And then to speak to pro services, just a little bit that Derek asked about, that's a program we started here a few years ago, and it had never picked up a lot of steam, and part of that's we probably haven't pushed it enough from an advertising standpoint. But basically, you would keep all of your records, your Keving books, your birth dates, and all your performance information like you typically do, and you turn that over to us. Turn it over to us in the office. We'll go through and enter that. Those fees are based off of your cow herd size. So if you've got, I'll give you a couple different scenarios. If you're in one of the inventory programs, whole herd or IBR, you pretty well have that active because you're paying on those active cows. If you're not in one of those, the first thing you'd want to do is certainly clean up that cow herd, because we're going to charge you a fee based on how large your herd is, and that kind of dictates how much time it's going to take us in the office to get that handled. But we'll handle that entry side of it for you. We'll get all that put in and get everything taken care of for you, entering the performance and everything. You're responsible for gathering the data, making sure it's all there, and then getting it to us in a legible and basically ordered format so that we know what it is and we can get it in there.
When you log on to beefmasters.org, I would consider putting an icon where you have reader login on that page. And, okay.
Yes, so the current website that is live right now is going to be given a facelift in the next month. However, they have the website programmer has the proof to me. I just need to go through and make changes and everything and make sure all the links and everything are great. So I think within the next month or so, you'll see that.
Are you increasing the size of your print? I may
No,
be
because
old,
you can.
and I know how to view, but I cannot see when I
Yeah.
pull up an animal's pedigree.
You have to use the Zoom
You
option
shouldn't-
on your
you shouldn't
browser.
have to use that.
Well,
One
that's
of the
the
challenges.
registry. That's the registry side, which goes through our registry programmer. That's a different website than the beefmasters.org. So if you look at the URL on that, that's NCBE. And so we would have to get with our registry programmer to increase the font size on if you're doing the animal search. So it's hard I know it's from y'all's side, it's kind of the same website, but they're two completely different websites. So we'll have to get with our programmer to get the font increased on that. Now on beefmasters.org, yes, it's mobile friendly, so it should increase the font based off of the device that you're using. Now the registry site is not mobile friendly, so that's why if you're using a iPad or a phone, it's not going to increase font based off of your screen size. So,
Well, I use a desktop. My next question is the turnaround time of getting your animal registered and getting your P number for an embryo calf. Once we send the blood card in, it takes 6 weeks. Is there any plans to try to reduce that time?
Certainly, from a
Because
DNA.
I can't get a certificate number until I have that animal approved.
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly correct. So with DNA, that process is still taking about 4 to 6 weeks. From once they receive it there at the lab. We send DNA out twice a week. So it's once it comes in, it gets loaded. We build the orders with Neogen on their website and gets mailed to them. We use priority mail just because we've had better luck with that than any of the other services. And so that's kind of the process that it goes out. Once it gets received, it still takes 14 to 17 days for that DNA sample to go through the process of DNA extraction, and then it's probably another 2 to 3 days for their data team to take that and load it into the system, clean it up, take everything out so that we have access to it then. And then it's usually a couple days there for us to get that Usually it's parentage that we're working on for most, and to get that parentage verified, because we do still have to manually verify parentage on every one of those orders.
Well, if we ever get to requiring genotype on all of our calves that are registered, that would seem to me to be a very big burden, so I would think
Yes.
it was something that you would consider.
Yeah, absolutely. If we could speed that process up, we certainly would. I wish it didn't take, but the mail time in a couple days, but unfortunately that technology is just not there yet. It's not quite like it's depicted through some of the crime shows that we see out there where they plug it in and it just goes and matches for us. It's not quite that technologically advanced for us, at least not in the beef industry. So we're constantly talking with Neogen. We generally have weekly to monthly calls with them, asking kind of where things are, if there's any updates, and then we have sit-down meetings with them at least twice a year, asking, one, is there ever an opportunity to reduce cost? Two, what can we do to help speed this process up? And I know that's a constant battle they face through many of the different associations that are out there. So it's something that we're continuously trying to work on, and I want to say I don't know, nothing's been put forward. But I do think that in the coming years that some technology is going to change somewhat so that we can get this thing to speed up a little bit. What that is and when that happens, I don't know, but that's kind of the logical next step, I think, that they're hearing from all associations. Bovine, equine, and any plant, animal, tree that's out there.
Just have a question concerning embryos and semen with consignment sales and private treaty, and also personal fleshes of your own animals. If you buy embryos or semen in a consignment sale, you get a receipt for that to show that we own that product. Is that correct?
Well, so that the receipt would actually come through either the individual that made that sale private treaty, through typically just the form of a bill of sale. BBU bill of sale is typically what we get in the office there. That's not something that we typically send out because that transaction is between you and the seller. I know through most of the sales out there, then that's your bill of sale that comes through them, and I think everybody gets one of those.
Right. Well, you get a bill of sale, you pay it, and then you get a certificate from y'all once the transfer is completed. Do you record if there was semen or embryos bought? Do you get to see that and release that so we can use it, or do we have to mail it to you every time there's a transaction?
So if it's through a sale, all of those come into us. Sale managers are really good about getting those included in there as long as they've got them. Those will come into us. If builds a sale, again, we separated things a few years ago. We don't take this the wrong way, but we don't care how many units of semen that you have. We care about how many certificates you have, because that's going to affect how many calves you can register. So as long as you got AI certs with that, or you got a semen bill of sale with that sale, then certainly we record that. And online, you can go in, I believe, and pull those up right there under My Inventories, and it'll have your list of inventories that are there.
Now, if I were to flush a cow and have embryos, do I need to let you know about that, what they are, so that you have a record of that, or how does that? Because if I transfer them into a recip, and you ask me, well, how did you get the embryos? So,
Okay, with the change, with the change in the program that we've had, just to let you know, people are looking for AI certs to be mailed to them. That is a digital cert that gets recorded in your inventory at BBU. And like Colin said, if you log in, you can go and see your AI certs that you have on hand. It doesn't matter that you have, you may have 1,000 units of semen on a bull you collected and sold, but you've only purchased like 500 or, whatever you purchased is what will be showing up there. The AI certs being in the inventory after you sold no longer have live access to that animal. Let's put it that way. It's either dead or you sold it. That's when you need the AI certs recorded. Same way on the embryos. If you own the donor and you have the AI certs available, you can register out of that one. If it came in today and you had in your inventory that donor dam and it qualified, and the AI search, or you own the AI sire and it qualified, we can register without going in and taking out any embryos or any AI search at that point. If you do not own the donor dam any longer, but you flushed her before you sold her, that's when you need to make sure it's recorded at BBU. You cannot see embryo inventory on your login, unfortunately, at this point. So you call Brandy or myself and you request, or you email us and request, can you send me my embryo inventory as it's recorded right now? We'll be glad to do that for you. So it just depends on if you have access to the live animals yourself as to whether you need embryo bills of sale in there. When the program was changing and it was going to be 1 for 1, and we used to let you do 10 AI search to 1 embryo, we would do, or 10 embryos, to 1 AI search. As that was changing, we advised you to go in and record it. If you've got them recorded already, because I'm just going to take 1 out for every 10 of these embryos that you're recording. So that was important to get recorded before the change came to be. Right now, as long as you have access to the donor and to the AI sire, you can register all day long without having any of either in your account. I hope that answered your question. It's a little complicated.
For ease, if you have plenty of certs out there, you don't feel like it's something that's going to hinder you in what you're doing, I would certainly be an advocate of registering those embryos from that mating. Send in a bill of sale. The bill of sale is $5, and it doesn't matter if there's 2 or if there's 500. Now, we will use an AI search for each one of those. Once those get made, those will start to come out of the system. But outside of that, no, I would certainly encourage you to go ahead and have those, because then they're there. They're on file. If you ever decide to sell embryos, or you sell that dam and then want to go back and use those, they're recorded and we have them in the system.
Walk somebody through the steps. If they bought a bull tomorrow at a sale, and they wanted to collect that bull and sell semen on the bull to John Gillespie, there he is standing in front of me. Walk us through the steps. You have to have DNA on the bull, the DNA on the sire and the dam if they're still alive. How do you buy the certificates? Those will be in your name, and then how you transfer them, I guess, would be the cost of that, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'll touch on part of that from a logistical standpoint, and then I'll let them kind of finish it. As far as if you bought a bull today at a sale and you decided, hey, I want to promote this guy, first thing, when he gets to the collection facility, be that Elgin or wherever you may be using, I would highly suggest just asking them to collect you a sample. They're very good about collecting those and sending them back to us. It's usually no problem whatsoever for them to do when they're collecting and running all the other tests that are there. That way, that sample is there and it comes to us. When I say that, because AI sires and donor dams have to be HD genotyped. AI sires and donor dams also must be parent verified unless one of those parents are dead and no longer available, or if they were typed, if they're older and were typed at another lab. And we're not going to make you jump through those hoops. You've done what you're supposed to, and we'll move forward. So logistically, those are the things that you would have to do to get them eligible to be an AI sire and to start purchasing AI certs on them.
And those genotypes on the sire and dam just can be ULDs. They don't necessarily have to be HDs.
No, they have to be HDs on AI sires and donor dams.
No, on their sire and dam. On their
Correct. I'm sorry, misunderstood you. The parents, yes, they just have to have a genotype on file that meets the same platforms. They can be compared for parentage. If it's an old sire dam that's collected off of STRs or microsatellites years ago, we may have to do some more testing or see if we can do some more testing. If we can't and there's no access available, then that's when those exception forms start to come in. But we can walk you through those, because those are kind of unique scenarios that don't fit everybody and can muddy the water if it's not something that you're needing. But the first thing we're going to do, we're going to look for that HD genotype. We're going to look to see if they've been sire and dam verified. Now, I'll let Donna walk you through on what it takes to get those certs purchased.
Okay, once you've met all the criteria, and like I said, don't think you're dead in the water if you can't parent verify it. That's when you contact the office and we look at the situation and see where we're at. exceptions are only given on parent verification. They are not given on HD genotyping a donor that has died. If that donor's died and wasn't HD genotyped and wasn't already in the program, there's not much we can do to help you on that. Parent verification exception is what we offer if it qualifies for that, and we will look at that to tell you. To get those, once you collect, they've met all the criteria and you're collecting the AI, the semen, and you're wanting to sell some, like Call Yourself a Lot, they will buy, or Lissy sells a lot, they will buy a certain amount, and it's going to be $5 for each one, and they may buy like 100 at a time, 500 at a time, whatever their budget that they want to do it, and they'll record it. Once it's recorded, if you do online, you can go in and transfer that yourself. Be very careful if you do it online. There is not, we tried to get it where it emails back to you, but I don't think it works consistently. So be very careful if you're transferring online that you're looking, when you put that buyer's number in, that it pops up Derek Frenzel and not John Gillespie. Make sure that it's got the right buyer on there, and make sure that you're putting the right quantity in there. Because once it's gone, you can't see what you transferred to whom. So make yourself a note. Then if you need to get in touch with us, if it didn't go and they say, well, I don't have it in my inventory, we're going to go back and look at that. We'll do research on our end where we can go back as much as we can and try to get that corrected for you. So, but basically that's what you're going to do, is you're going to buy AI certs, and you can either buy them as you transfer them, or you can buy up a quantity and have them in there, so that all you're doing, the transfer doesn't cost you anything. It's putting them in your store, so to speak, in your inventory, because until you have them in there, you can't transfer them to me or to Colin or to anybody else. So that's what costs you $5 a piece. So how you sell those AI certs is up to you. We're going to charge you $5. You're going, hey, I got to do the paperwork, I got to do the tracking on this because of this, and this. Maybe that's worth $3 extra, or whatever. Maybe you sell them for 8, maybe you sell them for 10. That's between you and your buyer. What we're going to charge you is $5 a piece to record them. Okay? So my best advice to you is to keep track of it. Whether you write it down in a notebook, you put it on a spreadsheet on your computer and do it. I know a lot of times people catch you on the fly and you're out at a sale and they're going, hey, I want to get some. And so trying to remember to go back and transfer those AI certs. Again, they're not going to be mailed to your buyer. They're not going to be mailed to you. They're just going to be recorded in your inventory. They're all digital. Okay?
Got time for a couple more, and then we'll get ready to head over to lunch.
I have one. With our move to go paperless and to try to do as much communication as possible through emails and online registration and things like that, up in our neck of the woods, we've got a lot of rural areas where people do not have access to internet. We've also got a lot of Amish members that just don't do email. And I would like to make sure that we've got or at least some assurance that we're still going to try to do some paper mail-outs like renewals for dues. We ran into that issue with the membership committee last spring where people just didn't respond because to the emails, including some people sitting in this room, did not renew by March because they didn't get anything in the mail. I want to see if we still have plans for getting those kinds of things mailed out after a certain point instead of just only doing email reminders.
So on membership renewals, certainly we'll continuously remind everybody in the avenues that we always have, with the exception, we do not send out a mass mailing anymore to every member to remind them to renew dues, simply because of the cost and the efficiency of the postal system. So what we do, we typically go through, we'll open that up here about the end of November, 1st of December for renewals for 2022. Those will start flowing out through the Kalman, through e-news, through direct emails, e-blast, and you'll actually get some direct emails that come straight from the registry system that says something about it's time to renew dues. Once we get through about probably the end of January, going into February, we decided to look at sending out postcards or some kind of a mail reminder to let everybody know in case they hadn't. Again, we're only as good as the mail is efficient. So We know that's a problem, and it's a growing problem and continues to get worse, unfortunately, even though as things continue to go forward. But yes, we do still try to communicate as much as possible through mail, but we certainly know what that expense is, and trying to be frugal along the way and save his dollars where we can. We are utilizing the Calman digital sources, email, and everything as much as possible.
And I think that the first time this year there were phone calls made by the membership committee that was very successful and greatly appreciated by most people.
Yes. The membership committee did reach out. It had been a year or two since they had reached out to all of those that did not renew, and there was a good response to that, I believe, this year.
And I'll add on to that. We have to rely on good addresses and good emails. So if you do not update your address or update your email, we can't do anything about that. So you have to let us know. We can send it out, but if we don't have a good address, that's on y'all as a member, non-members. So just make sure. I know everybody is inundated with just so much to do, but from a logistical standpoint, we can send out information, but if your address isn't good, I'm sorry that we didn't get it to you. So, but the biggest thing is read. We can send out information, but if you don't read it, then we can't get it to you. So read your Calman. We have a section in there called BBU News. We put it in there for your value. So please read it. That's our way of getting information to you through the mail. So please read that, as well as your e-news, so we can communicate with you as efficiently as possible.
And our administration day is supposed to be adding rural internet that you promised.
Yeah, Colin, and I also have a question from several of the international guests about JBBA, and about if there's any way that, since there's a reduced fee for international guests to be members of BBU, is there any way they can get that same reduced fee for JBBA, because they want their juniors and they want to start a similar program in their country, and they want to feel part of BBU with JBBA, and want to know if there's something we could do for them, because they want to, like Guillermo from Costa Rica, donating those paintings to help, as they understand how important it is and they want to incorporate it. So that's what their question was.
Sure. So I don't think there's any age restrictions on our international membership that I know of. All they have to do is join.
And they're just talking about the fee, if we can have a reduced fee.
Sure. So we can look at that and see. That's a pretty significant reduction right now. I don't know that we can go a lot lower on that and still give them access. But it's something we could look at and see if there's an opportunity to reduce any part of that or not.
Thank you. Anybody else?